Glen.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have another awesome show for you today, and there's Gary right there. Boom. Hey, Gary. How's it going?
Hey, guys. Good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to be here.
Morning, Gary.
Awesome. Glenn, good to see you. We are going to get into a conversation real quick here, but I'm wondering, there's immediately stuff going on. This first time it's ever happened.
All right.
So before we get into anything, before we go any further, I just want to mention everybody, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification button so that we can be in your email immediately every time we go live. But what I want to talk about is a couple different things. But before I get into it, does anybody have any thoughts? Anything on the top of your heads? Anything that you want to share with the internet?
Well, I'm just curious if Chance, you can just give us a 15-second elevator pitch on Gary, because I know Glenn, of course.
Absolutely, I can. So Gary, it's a good friend of mine.
It'll take a lot longer than 15 seconds.
Take it 10.
Yeah, 10 seconds. Okay. So Gary's a good friend of mine. He is a former school principal. He is also a horse trainer, horse breeder, and currently works in employment transition, correct?
Career transition, yes.
Career transition. There we go.
Okay, thanks.
There's your 10 seconds. Not bad. I think I did that in like 8. It's pretty good. Any thoughts? Anybody got anything to start with, or are we good to jump right in?
We have topics that we're covering today, or just free flowing?
I got topics. Don't you
worry. All right, let's hit it.
All right. So the first thing I want to talk about today is something that I think we all seek, but sometimes don't know how to do. And that's being a part of the herd. There's a lot of...
we're a part, or are we a part?
Thank you very much for that. Let me readjust. Let me just add a space here.
I'm just throwing that out for the school teacher. That's all.
There you go. Being a part of the herd. Thank you for the catch. I like that. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was specifically, I think a lot of us from the military, but I think also in civilian life, we are searching for a community. We're searching for a group. We're gregarious by nature as human beings, but I don't think a lot of us know how to become a part of a herd. Because within the military, you're forced. You just get thrown into a room with a bunch of people and said, figure it out. But in the civilian world, you don't really have that. And there's the ability in North America to not be a part of a herd. And you can basically live your life alone for a very, very, very long time without any interaction. So what are you guys' thoughts? Anybody got a starter? Gary, you want to start us off?
Well, of course, my experience in the world of horses, the herd is a very important aspect in the life of a horse. The herd means survival, and it's meant survival for thousands and thousands of years. So therefore, the horses are very willing, and actually they have great desire to be part of the herd, of a herd, simply because of the security it gives them. A lot of the work we do with horses, and the one thing Chance didn't say, is we work a lot with what we call equine facilitated learning or equine facilitated therapy, where we're utilizing horses to actually help people where they are in life and to hopefully get ahead. And even when it's a person and a horse, in the horse's mind, that's still a herd. That's how important the herd is to a horse. And so as people, we need to learn how to be leaders. And the more we can show love and language that the horse understands and leadership, the more comfortable the horse is going to be in following us and working with us. And to me, it's a huge metaphor for life. The way we interact with people, same thing, love, language, and leadership. We hopefully will like people a little bit. And as we learn the language of communicating and even developing relationships and what's important in communications, and then that internal leadership thing really helps us fit into a herd. I hope that it's not too scientific or too touchy feely, but
Makes perfect sense to me.
the herd is a big part of a horse's life and our life.
Absolutely. Shaun, Glenn, any thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like there's almost a negative stigma about being part of a herd. You know, everyone has been taught leadership qualities, so everyone wants to lead the herd, but like everyone wants to, the jocko and all this about how to be an alpha, how to be a leader, how to be have your wolf pack, and but no one really talks about how to be a part of that herd, how to be a regular member. You know, you mentioned the military and that kind of herd mentality. The reason why you don't join the military as a colonel or even a section commander is because you have to work your way up and pay your dues. And I feel like each different kind of group of friends I have or group of acquaintances, I'm a different member in that kind of herd. And so I think it's something. It's obviously I grew up with equestrian also. I grew up in Langley, where there's lots of equestrian. Where I was more the scooping and the feeding kind of guy, not much of the riding.
Right.
That's part of it.
It's all part of a herd, right?
Yep.
What goes in's got to come out, so that's important. Yeah,
that's right. But yeah, I think a herd mentality with every different group is important. Just not everyone. No one really talks about what you have to do to get to be an alpha, if that's even your goal.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shaun, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure, I do. So first of all, I'll establish that I kind of grew up around horses as well, from the age of 10 till the time I joined the Army. So not quite 10 years, but I spent lots of time on the back of horse. In fact, the first significant injury I ever got was bareback riding, and I'd been on horses a lot of years at that point. I had a young fella in front of me, younger than me, and the horse had entered that uncomfortable, not smooth movement, and we were kind of being bounced around a little bit, and the young fella in front of me started sliding off the horse. So I grabbed him and pulled him back onto the horse. But by pulling him back onto the horse, that moved me off the horse. That's called science. And so as we continued on, he started slipping, which made me slip off more, which had us both falling off the horse at speed from height. I was about, 15 years old. And in the air, I managed to turn him over so that he could land on me, which broke my freaking leg. And we were out in the middle of nowhere, and it was at a summer camp. And, this was the 70s in Alberta, totally disorganized summer camp. And they just looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" As I woke up from having been unconscious. And I said, "Yeah, I think so. My leg hurts." And for 2 days, my leg was a balloon until, I put 2 sticks to it, wrapped some twine around it, made a little Y stick, and hobbled out to a road where I drove to Hinton, where the doctor looked at me and said, "Do you know your leg's broken?" "Yeah, it hurts." And he went mental, of course. And,
you experienced the true definition that misery loves company.
Yes, I've had lots of company. So I've spent many weeks on horses. I'm comfortable with horses, and horses will absolutely teach you a lot of things. But they'll teach you things about yourself, and they'll teach you about how other people interact with horses as they observe you interacting with horses. And there's a whole dynamic there that if you're paying attention, you can learn a lot. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to establish that I'm familiar with the idea that we're talking about right now. What I would like to do is challenge everyone with this. I think everyone at their core level should be part of a herd. But I think I look at myself as the example. There's times when I've wanted to be a part of a herd, and there's times when I want nothing to do with a herd. Mm-hmm. And that's because I know myself. I'm comfortable with being me in absence of anything around me. I'm a bit of a solo player to some degree. Maybe it's because, that's why I was a good sniper. Or maybe I don't know why, but I'm very comfortable in my own skin. And I don't need any pats on the back. I don't need to look and see someone standing next to me. I'll stand out in the middle of nowhere for the rest of my life, and I'll be okay. I'll be comfortable with that. But I do know that Being comfortable is one thing, but being enriched is an entirely different thing. And so that's what I'm trying to establish is maybe you feel like you want to be part of a herd and maybe you don't have that feeling, but you will always be more enriched irrespective of your feelings if you can figure out a way to get into the right herd.
That's a great point. And it's very much about the right herd. Because as you know, Glenn, what you were saying was there's this negative stigma around, there's what is the term, sheeple, right? And then that's the negative stigma of just kind of following along with everybody else. But I've always, at least in my mind, I picture being part of the herd as being a part of the team. You are a integral member in that. You are not just there to eat food and wander around. You are all part of one unit. And as the unit, you can survive. And what you were saying there, Shaun, actually made a lot of sense, was the fact that you're comfortable being outside of that unit, but inside of that unit, you're also effective at the same time. So you can move in and out of that herd without any real issue because you're comfortable on both sides. But and there's benefits to both sides of it as well. Do you think that maybe some of the trouble that we're seeing out in the world with young people is that the entrance to the herd isn't really taught? Because when we're kids, we intermingle between groups all the time. You run up, you're like, hey, you look cool, you want to play, let's go, and off you run. Or you don't, or you talk to that group, or you jump from group to group to group. But as we get older, those groups become, I guess, the barrier to entry becomes more difficult because they're more specialized. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think with social media also, a lot of herds become less in person and then more online, and I don't think that's a healthy thing. I find we've all been part of those Facebook groups or whatever that you think this is kind of a group of like-minded people or a herd, and then next thing you know, it's a pot of crabs. One person says something and then everyone's dragging them down, right? Or if someone has a different opinion about something, instantly that person is ostracized. So I absolutely agree that it's harder to get into those. Like, look how much harder it is to make new friends as an adult as it is as a little kid, right? If you had 2 baseball gloves and a ball, you go outside, you instantly will meet a new friend.
And,
right?
And you're also defined as being super rich in my neighborhood.
If you got 2 gloves, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
But now, to meet new friends, to go out in like maybe even a healthier, less alcohol environment or whatever, it's a lot harder. It's much more difficult.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Gary, Shaun?
Yeah, you look at the pandemic and how it's affected so many of our young people, and for many of them, it's been disastrous. When you look at the drug abuse that's gone on, the consumption of alcohol, the anxiety, the depression that so many kids experience by being isolated and away from their herd. The one thing that really rings true for me, and I guess as humans, we're unique more so than with horses. A horse is they're going to want to have the security of the herd, and they're going to be a part of that herd, even if they're right on the bottom rung, because that's survival. For us, I think it's important to choose our herd. If we're hanging around with people who are continually negative and they're going in the wrong direction, and it's just a toxic environment, I think we have to choose to be around people who are more like us in the fact that we're positive, we're upbeat, we have some focus for the future, even though we may not know exactly. But choosing which herd you desire to be part of. And then we can also choose to what extent we want to be a part of the herd. Shaun, you made a good point. I like my own company. And I think you're going to be a better herd member because you are comfortable with your own company. I feel for people who don't like being by themselves and don't like their own company and need to have other people around them to just survive. So again, I'm all for selecting our herd and working to be choosing people that that are more positive, upbeat, and getting away from that herd that's negative and going in the wrong direction.
That's a great thought. Shaun, anything?
Yeah, this is a great topic and it's a great conversation. And coincidentally, it ties into what I was talking about in my Instagram live chat this morning, just before I jumped over here to the YouTubes. And specifically, the entire topic of my conversation was this: do you know yourself?
Mm.
Do you even know who you are? Is the entire topic that I spent however long talking about, maybe 40 minutes, I don't know, didn't pay attention. And so I find that if I can establish two extremes, just academically speaking, we'll call one arc you don't care about herds. And we'll call the other arc, you're all about the herd. In either of those two extremes, you need to know who you are. But a lot of people don't spend a lot of time thinking about who they are. They spend a lot of time thinking about who everyone else is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're on this extreme where you're trying to be comfortable not being in a herd, but you don't know yourself, what does that even mean? And if you're trying to be in a herd and you don't know yourself, do you understand what you're doing to the herd? So let's say it's a nice casual herd that operates really well out there in the meadow eating grass, and you show up as the freaky stallion, just causing all kinds of chaos. Trying to keep it in the horse theme. And so if I'm a stallion, as an example, and I don't know that, and I walk out into that meadow and I see all those horses, it's gonna be chaos. Because I don't even know what I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know the nonsense that I'm causing for that kind of serene moment that just went upside down. Because I don't know who I am and I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just causing chaos. But that's my nature. It's in me. It's who I am. I'm a stallion. But I just haven't got right with that idea. No one has told me. I can't evaluate against other stallions or whatever. Now, what I was discussing this morning is a lot of people are eager to join a group or become part of something or be validated within a crowd, but they don't even know who they are. They don't know themselves. They're trying to be known, but they don't even know. I don't even know me. So what I was suggesting is one way that I found to be valuable for me is to go out in nature. And what I suggested was a state of no mind. That's how I started it. 1 second. I wasn't very good at it. And then it was 2 seconds. Then it was 5 seconds. Then it was 10 seconds. Now I find it quite easy to be able to go out in nature on my mountain bike or whatever, sit on a tree stump, sit on a log, sit on the dirt, sit in the snow, doesn't matter what, stand up, lean against a tree, hug a tree, and enter a state of no mind where I think about nothing. I, quote unquote, merely exist. But the existence is the magic. Once you can get back to a baseline of existing without a whole bunch of white noise spooling up in your head, without you feeling tense and angry, without you feeling etc., if you can just get back to a baseline of state of no mind and build off of that, now you've got something that you can clearly define what's going on around you on the left and right arcs of be a loner or be a group player. Get to know yourself so that you can get to play with the future in a more effective, positive manner. I discussed that in the past. Well, actually, right there, that little plaque right there. I used a photo of that this morning with my coffee mug, and I just put a verbiage over top of it, and I said, "Who are you?" Well, that's when I was in JTF too. That's who I was at that time. But that was many careers ago. That was many years ago. That was a different guy. But it's still me. It's still a part of me, but it doesn't define me it only helped shape me as I move forward. What defines me is now, who I am now, how I think now, how I interact now, lessons that I've learned now. So being a part of the herd, I can draw on my past all day long, but I've still got to know me now, and whether I am clear thinking, clear acting, clear interacting, or am I muddy? Am I distorted? Am I busy? Too busy in my head to be able to see things as clear as they can be. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's a heck of a thought. Anybody else got any thoughts on that before I jump into the next piece?
Shaun, I think you've hit the nail on the head when you talk about getting away to nature and clearing your thoughts. That's a very difficult thing to do, is to not think about anything, because as soon as you start not thinking about anything, you're thinking about something. And that's our whole philosophy with the horses. And by the way, the one thing with the horses that I'll mention, when we're dealing with people who are dealing with issues, there's very little riding. It's all on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So you're interacting one-on-one, and your concept of just letting your mind go and emptying it is a very powerful mind. And that's the state that a horse is in naturally. It's called mindfulness. They're not worried what happened yesterday. They're not thinking about what's going to be for supper tonight. They're strictly in the present. And that state of mindfulness is the buzzword that all the psychologists use. But it's when we can get in that state that we do get to know more about who we really are. So I think that's a very valid point, getting back to nature. And the thing I like about the horse is they're a mirror. When you get there, they show it. When you're not there, they read any kind of energy that you're giving out. And of course, they're always on guard. And if your energy doesn't resonate with them being in a mindful state, they're going to give you very honest feedback of where they are and where they're at.
Yeah, for sure they will. And I mean, I don't know how many times I've said this, but I love working with horses because that's exactly what they do. They tell you exactly what you're thinking, even if you don't want to believe that that's what you're thinking. They will still tell it to you. They are 100% truthful.
I'd like to just add one more piece, if I may, from my live chat just this morning. One other statement that I made, casual observation, is this, that when I'm out on my mountain bike, I'm trying to ride with a state of no mind sometimes. But other times, I'm listening to music and thinking about other things, trying to solve all the world's problems, trying to figure out how the dolphins communicate, trying to figure out whale language, whatever. My mind does things while I'm out on the bike where I'm solving or not solving all of the world's problems. But then there's times when I'm out on the bike where I'm actively pursuing a state of no mind. I call it flow state. I've been in it many times throughout a lot of years of my life in a bunch of different sports and a bunch of not sports. And so state of no mind is important to me, the flow state. And what I'd said this morning in my live chat was, now I don't want to freak you all out, but I just want to state this, that sometimes when I'm in a flow state, I understand what is actually happening. And this is what's happening. I'm just an energetic being moving down an energetic path on a thing called planet Earth. Now, you can call it what you want. You can call me Shaun on a mountain bike ripping, which is one layer of it. And you can slice many layers down until it is what it is. And it's just me existing as an energetic being in an energetic planet doing energetic things. And I can turn that into a negative energy or a positive energy. And I've found in my life that the times that I'm riding angry, which was many years ago, well, that's not cool, baby. It's not a good path forward. It's like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Choose. You know what I mean? So as I was talking about it this morning, trying to encourage people to enter a state of no mind, even if it's for a second or 2 seconds, to build up to longer, where you can then flow mode or free flow or state of no mind your way down a trail, or state of no mind your way in your house when things are getting crazy, where you can chillax, accept what's incoming, stay positive, and not sweat the details, and trust that the present, do your best. The past is gone. The future is being shaped by you on how you act in the now. As long as you focus on staying clear-headed and positive, generally speaking, life works out pretty well.
It can, that's for sure. This is
I did say generally.
You did, absolutely. I was agreeing with you. We got a comment here from Hunden. Oh, this was right off the bat. Late, light, and out of uniform. Yeah, sorry about that, Hunden. We're a couple minutes late. We'll make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm watching.
Check.
Yeah, it's actually that guy right there.
100%.
We got another comment. Not a herd, but a tribe. In dangerous times, we find persons which closer than a family. Yeah. The absolutely a tribe, a herd. There's lots of words for it too. I mean, a group, a team. What you're looking for is others that understand working together, I believe, at least in my mind. And I think a lot of it comes back to, like, at least when I was in the military, there was a lot of strife between the different teams, right? The engineers, the infantry, we would beak at each other, and we would
Obviously.
and we would call out, people would, unfortunately, there would be a lot of also looking down the nose at people, like, oh, these guys are just in supply, or those guys are just drivers, or those guys are whatever. But nobody can do their job without anybody else. And I think that's the really core crux of it all, is that when you're a part of the herd, when you're part of the tribe, when you're part of the team, you recognize that you are a cog in the wheel, right? You are a piece that makes the whole thing work. It's not that we're all, superstars and shiny things. And I mean, you look at professional sports teams, right? You have one star working for himself. He might be great, but the team's not going to be awesome, right? If you have 4, let's say, quote unquote, B players all working together, they can outplay one star all day long. So I think that it's very important to recognize that you can lead, but you can also be part of the team at the same time if you know who you are, if you know what part you're playing in that moment. I think it's great to bring in the point of being mindful and recognizing what's happening around you. One of the things I learned actually working with Gary was the fact that the requirement in order to be a part of that herd, to work with those horses, is to recognize that you are a part of it. That was a big step for me. It was the fact that I was walking in there going like, well, I'm me. I'm in charge. The horse does what I want. What's the issue? that is the issue. That's the
Good
problem.
job, Gary.
Yeah, exactly. He taught me quite a bit. So we'll give him a round of applause, or a pat on the back, because that was very helpful. Any thoughts on this before we move on to the next piece?
Yes, just very quickly. Yeah. Can you pull up Yuri's comment again real quick? Thank you.
Absolutely. Boom.
Good. And I'm just going to quickly throw this out, and then I'd like you guys to maybe build off of it, because I'm not going to develop it too deeply. I'm just going to make a cursory comment. So Yuri's right. In dangerous times, we find persons which are closer than a family. So let me establish this. When things get dangerous, people start thinking more about who they are and what they need. But when things aren't dangerous, people don't think a lot about who they are and what they need. So when it's really, really, really dangerous, that's when you get right with the present. You're not all up in your past. You're not all too concerned about the future. You're just wondering if you're going to get to breathe 5 seconds from now. And so you get very present when things are super dangerous. And you rely on the people around you a whole lot more when things are super dangerous. So your tribe or your herd in dangerous times means a whole lot more, is a way different thing than today, where you're just casually walking down the sidewalk, where things don't feel dangerous to you, perhaps. So you'll establish a different herd in dangerous times than you are going to establish in non-dangerous times. Why is that? Why do we think differently in danger for our herd rather than not? Here's a quick thought. People think about things a whole lot deeper in danger. So why can't we apply that deeper thought or more relevant thought or more critical to us thought in non-dangerous times?
That's a good question. Gary or
We're
Glenn?
too comfortable.
There you go.
We're living in the most comfortable time that humans have ever lived in before. And
Thank
I'm
you,
not
Gary.
sure that it's serving us particularly well. With, again, going back to the horse herd, horses continually live in a state of high alert. Even if they're in the pasture out behind the barn, they're still on high alert. Therefore, the team is critical to them. Shaun, you make a great point. We're way too comfortable. And when we're comfortable, we get really lazy.
That's a great point. Glenn, thoughts?
It should be commented that Yuri would be a definite expert on this. I
Yep.
met him in Eastern Ukraine, where his country is at war, and he knows that the people that he surrounds himself now are the ones that he is possibly going to have to fight with or fight for. So my hat's off to you, Yuri, and if anyone knows anything about being close to someone and treat others like family, it would definitely be him.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I recognize with this comment, but also with Shaun, is the fact that I think a lot of us really think in a binary manner when things are dangerous or they're not. Right? There, it is either you are in a dangerous situation or you're not. But in truth, your life can end right now. And like you could step out on the street and slip, smash your head, done, whew, over. That's dangerous, just as dangerous as bullets flying over top. The real, I think, trick is to recognize that you don't always have to be hyper aware. You just need to be aware. You need to have some sort of awareness of your surroundings, because if you don't, we start to get lazy. Everything's fine. Nothing has happened. I could say the same thing while I was walking the roads in Afghanistan and going like, nothing's happened yet. I'm totally safe. But I wasn't. I was in a dangerous situation. But it's only dangerous because I'm believing that it's dangerous. The fact that I could end at any point in time is here. It's now. It's then. It was previous to that when I was a 14-year-old kid doing stupid stuff. Like, this is the thing that I think a lot of us forget, is the fact that life is precious in all of its forms at all times, rather than only when, there's bad guys around or there's my country's being invaded. People in Canada think that we're great here. Everything's awesome, but that can change in an instant. Any thoughts?
Life isn't precious at all.
No?
If you don't think so.
There you go.
If you think that your life is existence through the sense of just another Groundhog Day, it's not that precious to you. If you don't understand how precious it is, it ain't precious. And so how do you figure out how precious it is? Well, that's an individual journey. And it all depends on what you've been exposed to. You don't have to be in the military. You don't have to be a hard charger. You don't have to serve your country. You don't have to do anything. You can learn how precious life is as a 10-year-old. But it's whether you remain cognizant of that lesson, whether you remember it 10, 20, 30, 40 years later in your Groundhog Day existence, how precious life is. And so what I've found, it's an observation. It's not a hard rule, but an observation of mine is this, that the people who live the fullest lives are the people who keep reminding themselves as to how precious life is. The moment that you forget how precious life is the moment that you don't live a full life, is my opinion. And to your point on Yuri, Glenn, I 100% agree. And it's coincidental since we're talking about being a part of the herd. In my live IG chat yesterday, I hadn't talked to Yuri eyeball to eyeball in a couple of weeks. I think the last time I talked to him was on the collective. And I used to talk with him on a fairly regular basis in my IG live chats. I mean, that's kind of how everyone got to know Yuri. I got to know Yuri through you, Glenn, and then the internet got to know Yuri through my IG live chats. Now he's got a hashtag, Yuri in Ukraine, which I dropped yesterday because in my live chat yesterday, I was missing the dude as part of my herd so much that I hit invite. And for 15, 20 minutes, Yuri and I had a live chat in my IG chat yesterday, and it was awesome because I missed the dude, you know, because he's a great guy. And so I have a herd. It ebbs and flows depending on what I'm doing at the time, the social medias that I'm interacting with the time, the bike that I'm on, the kite that I'm flying, the Hooper's Bakery that I'm eating. I've got many herds, but they're all part of a large herd that I don't try to, like a stallion, control. I observe my herd. I try to interact with it. I try to be part of it. I try to love it. I hope it loves me. I try to not be all twitchy with my ears up and my eyes bugging around looking for a coyote all the time. I try to be a cool horse in a cool herd, essentially.
Yeah. Any further thoughts before we jump into the next topic? Everybody good?
A new generation that seems to be emerging is a generation that feels very entitled. And there's some real challenges there with entitled feeling people being able to be a part of a herd.
That is a very big challenge. It actually goes directly into the next topic that I want to talk about. So appreciate the segue, which is separating yourself from the group by trying to be a part of the group.
So is that a part or a part?
Oh man, I did it again. Thank you very much. I'm gonna need Shaun to spell check my stuff from now on. Depends.
My grade 6 English teacher is just as happy as a clam right now.
There you go. Yeah, this is the way, I guess. So separating yourself from the group by trying to be a part of the group. And the reason I put this in here and the reason I want to talk about it is Shaun and I were talking about this yesterday, was the fact that from a very young age, I tried to integrate myself into groups that I was not really a part of. So I was surrounded by adults a lot when I was young. So I tried to speak and talk to adults as if I was an adult when I was like a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. And that led me into this continual cycle of trying to integrate myself in somewhere that I wasn't really a part of yet. I hadn't taken the time to be there. And this happens a lot when people, they just kind of fake their way in to try to get to be a part of the group. They change who they are in order to be in somewhere else. They try to ingratiate themselves into, say, a clique at school by, they want to be part of the skater clubs. Well, they go out and buy a skateboard, but no one doesn't know how to skate. It's that type of person that they're trying to be something else. They're trying so desperately to be a part of that group. But by doing so, it sets them apart from them. I guess I did have a right to be a part of it. Anyway, doesn't any thoughts on that? On the ability or the difficulty of trying to be something that you're not.
I almost want to go on the opposite side of that, because I do think that you can reinvent yourself.
True.
And I truly feel like I'm kind of like Shaun, where I've had a few different careers, and I had to tell when I was in the Army and transitioning from the military to a career in real estate, I had to almost fake it till I made it. So I had to buy that skateboard and go to the biggest ramp possible and jump in, not knowing what I was doing, because that's what worked for me. I knew if I just got my toes wet or just tried to ease into it, it wasn't going to work. So I had to reinvent myself as a top real estate agent. And I know, maybe was I over my head at certain points? Absolutely. But then next thing you know, I was getting the awards. I was helping my clients. I was doing everything I needed to do to be that person that I wanted to be. So as much as I know what you mean about, you know, changing who you are, but if that's who you truly want to be, then I think you can reinvent yourself. And especially with career transitions, right? I mean, like you kind of have to tell yourself that this is who I want to be, especially something so drastic from wearing a suit and tie, where previously you were wearing combats, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Gary, any thoughts?
Well, very true. I guess the secret is I suggest to people who are going through a career transition that personal skills are transferable. We can learn anything, but if you've got the transferable skills on how to get along with people, you can be a part of just about any group you desire to be and learn the technical stuff as you go. But again, it falls down to that, personal skills, having the right mindset, having the right attitude, being able to communicate effectively with people and different people as well, from the young to the elderly. So your personal skills and attitude has a lot to do with it.
Makes sense. Shaun, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure do. So to Glenn's point, and I'll use his point to maybe build off things a little bit, and then I'll be curious as to what you guys think. So much like Glenn, I feel the same way. I know myself, and I know myself because I've thought about myself a lot. And I know this to be true about me. If I walk into a swimming pool and I don't know how to swim, I bypass the shallow end and go straight to the deep end and flounder, maybe even drown for a little bit, because that's just who I am. It's in my nature. I don't dabble. I go straight to the deep end and try to go straight to the bottom and see what's there. I claw my way down a rabbit hole as fast as I can because I want to own whatever I've entered into in the fullest way possible. That's my nature. And that's what's allowed me to make all of the mistakes that I've made and have the minor successes that I've had. So you kind of got to know who you are at your core before you enter into a new group. If you don't know you, you you don't know the group. If you don't know you don't know which direction to go. If you don't know you, it's your job to figure out who you are. And so as I said in my live chat today, spend some time getting right with thinking about just you rather than thinking about everyone else around you. And if you can think about yourself deeply enough and long enough, now you can figure out a way to not only integrate into a group, but what group you want to integrate into. So that is the first piece that I would like to establish is before you enter into anything, spend some time thinking about the internal rather than focusing on the external. The next piece I would like to say is, again, to Glenn's point, we can redefine ourselves in a second. If I want to change my career today, it'll be changed. I'll be heading in a completely different direction, walking straight to the deep end of that direction, diving straight into it and trying to own it. Because I know this to be true. At 60 this year, I might have another 20 years, maybe 30, whatever, if I'm being really super excited about the possibilities. But as a pessimist, I might only have another 15 years. 15 years might seem like a long time when you're a young kid, but 15 years as an old man feels like it is not enough time to meet all the cool people that I want to meet, learn all the cool things that I need to learn, and maybe occasionally throw out a cool wisdom nugget or two over the next 15 years. So I feel now an even stronger conviction to target lock and execute against whatever I'm doing on the daily. So, whatever group I'm in, when I was younger, I was always trying to do my best, but it was just an action. Nowadays, as an older man, when I say do your best, it freaking means something more to me now than it meant to me when I was younger, even though I was still doing my best. So, separating yourself from the group by trying to be a part of the group, I think that if you're trying too hard because you're not being authentic, anyone who's been in the game a while will see it for what it is. So figure out who you are truly, figure out what group you want to go into truly. And if you know those two things, you'll be all right. Where it usually goes wrong is when you want to be part of something, but you don't even know who you are.
Mm-hmm. It's a great
Well
point.
said, Shaun.
Any, I want to add a point to that I caught as we were going through it, is the fact that it's when you try to hold on to the previous point as you move into the new group that really is what separates yourself. And as you're saying, Shaun, if you want, and Glenn as well, if you want to truly reinvent yourself, then you have to be able to go, cool, and go 100%, the whole body. I am now going to jump into the deep end. But if you were trying to hold on to the shore of a river and try to swim out into the middle, you're not going to make it. You're going to start floundering. Everyone's going to be seeing you trying to flounder in the shallow end. But it's the ability to actually recognize that, okay, now I need to move on and completely move, rather than actually use a horse analogy. If the grass that the horses are eating is all done, they can't kind of stay there and then eat their way out. They have to move as a unit to then have new grass to eat. They have to be, in order to be part of a new group, you have to fully move rather than only partially move. Thoughts?
And one more thing, because it's been a while since I've been in the horse game, like when I was a kid, generally speaking. So what I'm about to say may have no bearing on how horses work nowadays. But I do know this. My observation was, you got to herd horses. They're out in the pasture or out in the bush or whatever the case is. They're doing horse things. And if there's a stallion there, the stallion wants to get his freak on. He wants to sprint from one end of the pasture to the other for whatever reason. Like, look at him go. Warp factor 3 straight to the fence, and then warp factor 3 to the other fence, and jumping and bucking and doing all of his thing. He's being a stallion. He's being who he is, true to his nature. And if you watch a pack of horses, a group of horses, a herd of horses, and you can identify all of the unique characteristics, all the unique characters, and then identify the stallion's not a freak. And it's not that he's freaking out, but he's getting his freak on. And for that stallion to retain that, to be inauthentic to himself, to like crush all that down and just saunter around being a non-stallion, that's hard on a stallion, I think, though I haven't talked to one recently. So I would say this, that if we're talking about being part of a group or part of a herd, again, you got to know who you are. No one has to think that they're a stallion. I don't, obviously. But you got to figure out who you are and how you fit into that herd, perhaps, before you parachute into the middle of the herd and start bucking around thinking that you're something that you're not.
That's a great point. Anybody?
Just to
anybody
clarify
else?
a few things, Shaun.
Yeah, please do. My
Stallions
horse
are
fence is not yours.
Stallions are very seldom leaders of a herd.
Oh, check.
It's the mares. So maybe that's part of the answer. We need some of the women to take over.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I wonder if we can get a panel of 5 ladies this Sunday.
That would be interesting to discuss. And the other thing about a herd, too, contrary to popular belief, is that there will be one horse that is the leader of the herd. And that's not totally true. The leadership actually changes from time to time. Every horse has its own, we call it horsenality. And there are some horses who are very introverted and will always remain towards the bottom of the pecking order. But towards the top, it varies. Different horses will take different roles depending on the situation. But the stallion takes more heat than he does prove that he's something special.
Well, that's fantastic, Gary. Look at me learning things. That's why I come here. Honestly,
it.
I come here for the wisdom, not to hand it out. So now I would have to reframe my analogies as an
Yeah.
example, stallions and whatnot. But I think to your point, the truth of the matter is, and how it's relevant to human beings is that's how we also operate.
Yes.
There is flux, there is flex, there is
Yeah.
shift in leadership roles, in inspiring roles, in influential roles, in guidance roles, in where do we go get the grass roles. Obviously, I'm not a stallion anymore because the stallion isn't the man. So I need to
Yeah.
figure out what that is.
Yeah. And I wouldn't go for gelding either.
Check.
That's probably not where you want to go. It's a good point though that what we were saying earlier was the fact that everybody has a role, and those roles will change. And I was thinking about the fact that as parents, my wife and I, it's not that I am the disciplinarian. There are times where I am a disciplinarian. There are times where my wife is a disciplinarian. There are times where I'm the happy-go-lucky, I'm going to tickle the kids until they squeal type of person in that role. But there's also, my wife does that too. And it just based on how the situation plays out and flows within the group and who's allowing it, what the energy is. And I love what you're saying earlier, Shaun, about being energetic beings, doing energetic things in an energetic way. Kids, horses, teams, platoons, these are all just groups of energy flowing within in and amongst each other. And we'll all find when stuck together, we'll all find where those flows fit and how you can move along those lanes and how to move them effectively. I just love that. Glenn, you got any thoughts? You've been pretty quiet up there. No?
I've just been taking it all in. Like it's been good. I love listening to Gary's conversation there about the horses. That's for sure. And you can definitely take that and put it into every family life too, right? Which is so important.
Yeah, it's a. I like I said, I spent a lot of time with Gary. He taught me quite a bit, and his horses taught me quite a bit. Then
The horses are the better teacher.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Maybe the quieter.
The quieter teacher. I think actually Gary might be the quieter teacher. Yeah. I got booted a couple times by a couple of them. They were they taught me a lesson that I needed to learn, that I should not scare young horses while they're running past me. I thought I knew that lesson, but
well, if you've never been kicked by a horse, you haven't been around horses long enough.
That's a good point. They're an interesting lot, and I love Gary mentioned the horse analogies, and that we really need to apply that to the people around us. Is that each of our personalities is going to be different, and each of our personalities is going to be different in each moment. So you can apply that, say someone is a more extroverted person or introverted person, or likes to hang out inside their own house. But if we just assume that they are always going to choose that option, then we can't interact with them in a authentic way, because we're making assumptions based off of something that has happened in the past. Whereas we really do need to be in the present moment when dealing with the group, because their personalities are going to change. And who knows, the most introverted person I know might want to go to a party tomorrow. Who knows? Sometimes that does happen. So we have to think, or at least I should say, I have to think more about each person's personality in the moment to gauge how to be a part of that group and how to keep myself from actively separating myself by being inauthentic. I think that's where I'm going. That's the piece that I've learned from that today. Any thoughts before we, anybody got any final thoughts before we shut it down?
Sure. Just to touch on if it was a casual statement, it's not a rule of thumb. When I said, if you haven't been kicked by a horse, you haven't been around horses long enough. That's just my observation. It may not be true. Gary's going to teach me something new in a second, I'm sure, about horse kicking or not. But what I will say is this. It makes for a good opportunity to make a hardcore comment, which I truly believe is correct. If you do get kicked by a horse, you now have a branching point. You get to decide when you stand up and brush the dust off and think, ow, that hurt. You can now say to yourself, that's it. I'm out of here. Screw horses. They suck. Or you can brush that dust off and think, wow, I wonder why that happened. I better figure this out. And I better do better next time because I don't like getting kicked by a horse. Because I want to love on horses. I want to learn how to ride horses. I want to get better at horses. I don't want to get kicked again. And so that's the branching point, baby. In or out, commit or not. So the moment that you get kicked, if you stay in the game, well, now you're part of the herd. But if you get kicked and you bounce, you're out of the herd. Horses are dead to you just because of a single moment where you got kicked and your branching point was this. Ow, that hurt. I'm out of here. Guess what? Life is full of bumps and bruises. I can't even count the amount of horse kicks, metaphorically, that I've had in my life. But you're either in the game or you're fading out as fast as you came in just because you're not happy with the discomfort of it all. Life is uncomfortable. You got to figure out the way to keep branching forward in a positive manner that is making you a better, more three-dimensional human being. That would be my point.
That is an excellent point.
Can I make just another quick
absolutely.
correction, Shaun?
Yeah.
100%.
Modify your story just a little bit. A horse that kicks is a horse that doesn't trust. And a horse that doesn't trust is a horse that we need to work with so they will trust us. But if you talked about getting your foot stepped on by a horse, which tends to be more of an accidental happening, that would be a little bit more of a horse that you would trust than it would just be accidentally putting its foot on yours. Crazy.
I like that because I can build on that real quick.
Yeah.
So, if it's a horse that doesn't trust, cool. You're making my point perfectly. Because when you enter into a group, regardless of who I am, if I'm the man or I'm not the man or I'm this or I'm that or I'm up or I'm down or whatever label, if I step into a group called horses and that horse kicks me because it doesn't trust me, guess what? That's how some groups work.
Yep. Sure is.
And sometimes it's just someone steps on your foot. And sometimes that's how groups work. From one extreme to another extreme, there's going to be discomfort. And so it's your job to figure out, that was way too intense when that horse kicked me in the chest, or that was way too intense when that horse stood on my foot. But what I find fascinating, to Gary's point, is there are groups out there that will overreact in a distrustful manner and kick you right in the head, as the analogy.
I think that's a great point. And it goes to show that the true, I think the key piece in there is that you have to be authentically looking at yourself as what the issue is, right? If the horse doesn't trust you, why doesn't the horse trust you? If the horse steps on you, why did the horse step on you? It's not that the horse is trying actively to hurt you. It's trying to show you something. I don't trust you. Or you're standing in my way. Or you're tiny and my butt is more important than you. I think there's a lesson in each one of those points. And that, yes, sometimes it hurts. But if you can learn from that, then it won't hurt next time. Or maybe it won't hurt as much. Maybe you'll be able to dodge it a little bit better. Gary or Glenn, you got any final thoughts before we shut her down after an hour? Actually, Gary, I'm going to throw you on the fire. Any final thoughts on anything that we've talked about so far today?
Well, I guess the interesting thing between a horse and a person is you bring up the point where we always look to a horse steps on us, we want to blame the horse. Someone does us wrong, we immediately want to blame whoever does the wrong or the circumstances. A horse does not have that part of the brain which is necessary to scheme ways to get you. The cerebral cortex in a horse just doesn't exist. So a horse is only going to respond and react totally out of what they're feeling right in that moment right now, whether it's trust, fear, or love or whatever. There's the big difference between we humans. we can and do scheme and plan. And as part of a group, there can be a fair amount of scheming and planning that goes along with it in the way that they're going to either accept you or not accept you, or put you under some pressure to see how you respond. And that's what I love about the horse more than anything else. If the horse isn't doing as I'm hoping that they will do, it's never the horse. It's always me. I have to look inside me and say, what can I do differently to make the horse more comfortable to do what I want it to do? And the carry over the metaphor to people is really the same. We're going to get so much more joy out of life. We're going to fit into more groups if we can look at taking the responsibility of ourselves rather than looking to just blame everybody, everything, the government, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Glenn, any final thoughts before we shut her down?
Just that horses can get really sad also. That's why they have the long face.
Can I write that down, Glenn?
That's good, Gary. I love Gary's analogies with the horses. That's fantastic.
Yeah. This is I spent many an hour just listening to Gary and his analogies with horses. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so we're just over an hour here. Again, Gary, Glenn, I can't thank you all enough for showing up and having this conversation with us. I think there's a lot of really great information here. And for all those watching, if you guys, again, haven't yet, make sure you like and you subscribe and you hit the notification bell so that you're warned every day as we go live here on The Collective. I guess I can't thank you guys enough. It's been a great conversation. We any last points there, Shaun, before didn't give you a chance to...
Great combo. Thanks for joining us, Gary, for the first time. And of course, Glenn, thanks for repeats.
Thanks for having me.
It's always good to see you, pal. Learned a lot in this one. Learned a few things about maybe I don't want to be a stallion anymore. So I appreciate that.
We'll make him Shaun the honorary broodmare. There you go.
I'll take it.
All right. Well, as we learn about horses, as we build upon ourselves and grow as human beings, we can do that together here on The Collective. We'll see you all tomorrow. Chimo.